Eventually, once football's over, like this is going to be my main job. I want to take over the management side. I want to deal with the day-to-day grind. I really like to know the market, know the location. My markets right now have just been Toledo, Ohio, and Ann Arbor, Michigan. That duplex that's right down the street from the biggest stadium in America with the team who just won the national championship.
Talk your talk.
I didn't witness the eviction. I just witnessed they slapped the eviction notice on the door, and then
I would have thought if they evict somebody, they would have definitely brought you for backup.
5 years, I'd love to have 100 units.
Damn, that's a lot. Now you got 13 of them things, man. How do you manage 13 rental property units? Literally, it's like let me pull out the Fashion Nova box and get my collared shirt on and
man, no Fashion Nova, no Fashion Nova in this household, but I respect the guys that wear it.
What is that though? What brand is that?
I think it's just a Nike like golf polo. Nothing too crazy. Okay. Breathable, the dry fit, stretchy technology, so I'm not sweating like a pig on the golf course. So,
yeah, are you a golfer?
I mean, a very, very loose term, yes.
Yeah.
I played one round this year so far, and I shot a 112, which was my best score ever.
Nice.
And I'm looking to break 100 this year. So if I can get out another 10 to 15 times this year, I think I'll be able to break 100. But I've been stuck at the 120s for a long, long time.
I just want to see you drive the shit out of the ball one time. Like I want to see how far you can drive it. Full force.
If I hit it smack dab in the middle and I get the hips into it and I'm feeling warmed up, probably like 350. But most times it's like 200 straight line drive.
Are you wearing that polo when you go visit your new properties and your duplexes, your triplexes, or is there another wardrobe?
It depends on the situation. Like if I'm going to go see the property with a listing agent or whatever or a broker for sure. But actually, like April 1st, we just had closed on a four unit townhome unit in Toledo, Ohio, and back in mid February. So I think February 16th we closed on it. April 1st rolls around, and I get a call from my property manager. They're like, "Hey, can you give me a call?" I'm like, "Oh man,
yeah." Bad
storms in Toledo, Ohio, high winds, flooded the entire second floor, roof came off. The whole entire unit is needs to be basically remodeled. And it's like April 1st. I'm like, this has got to be an April Fool's joke, like a very, very bad April Fool's joke, but like, please let this not be the case. And, a month and a half of having this unit, it flooded and it has to be regutted and, totally gutted and replaced with everything. So when I go see that unit, I'm going to be wearing, rain boots or, hoodie and some sweatpants, not a decent looking collared shirt for sure.
Oh man. Yeah, that's the dirty work it takes of an entrepreneur, because we got you on the Athletes and Assets podcast. I'm your host, Noah Lack. I bring on your favorite athletes to chat about a business topic. We got Chris Wormley, NFL DN, man. Off-season vibes. Chris, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
Where are you in the world right now? Are you in Ohio?
I live in Ann Arbor, Michigan, in the off seasons.
Okay.
My wife and I have been there for about 4 or 5 years now. That's where the University of Michigan's at, where I graduated, and I loved it so much that I came back after my 4th year.
Wow. Okay. Because you were in California a couple weeks ago, right?
Yeah, I was supposed to be, but plans got mixed up, and that's why we couldn't, connect in studio.
Okay.
But yeah, my wife spent a couple years out there for school, and it's just a place that we love to get away from, especially the Michigan winters. We like to sneak away for a little bit to get to sunny California.
So were you in the Ross School of Business while you're at Michigan? I mean, is that where you learned about sort of like the different real estate options, as you're investing and renting out different property or buying different properties and leasing them out? Like, where did that come from?
I think to answer your question, no, I wasn't in Ross School of Business. I wish I was, looking back at it. I originally went to Michigan to be a physical therapist. So I was in the School of Kinesiology.
Oh, nice.
And after my freshman year, I actually during camp of my freshman year in 2012, I tore my ACL. And then my first semester on campus, I was hobbling around on crutches for the first month. Had this like really hard science biology class, and I'm like, okay, this is not for me. Especially if I want to excel at football, which is the reason why I came to Michigan. I need to pivot a little bit and try and figure out something else. And luckily, within that School of Kinesiology, there was a sport management major. And so it was an easy transition to kind of get into that. And it was very business-like. It had a lot of the same business classes you would take at Ross, just with that, I guess, sports focus on it. But my love of real estate really came at an early age. I was looking on Zillow as a young kid, looking at houses that, as a 12-year-old, there was no way I was going to afford with my $5 allowance a week. But as the years went on, just continued to learn as much as I could, read as many books as I could, flipping books, buy and hold books, wholesaling books, just trying to figure out what I really wanted to kind of focus on. And then my senior year of Michigan, I had an internship with the property management company that actually managed my college house, and really got to dive in. Yeah, it was cool. Didn't have a lot of responsibilities. It was more of me just like shadowing the main property manager and the broker. That was
you're their security. You're backing them up in case any of the
we had to go to some. Yeah, we had to go to some not so nice parts of the student housing. You're walking through frat houses. You're walking through beer strewn places. The floors are sticky. You know how it is when you go to college. It's not the most sanitary, but I wouldn't know. I'm telling you, I'm telling you, I know. I'm out of college now, but I got to see that side of real estate investing, the management side of it, how they take care of properties, how they handle tenant disputes, evictions, all that good stuff. And not for the most part, it was pretty smooth because it was college kids minus the beer bottles and whatnot. Because the parents had to, they paid for most of it.
But did you witness an eviction while you were while you were interning?
No, I didn't witness the eviction. I just witnessed, they slapped it on. They slapped the eviction notice on the door, and then whenever they came home, I'm like, all right.
I would have thought if they evict somebody, they would have definitely brought you for backup.
No, I mean, I was trying to get to the NFL. I wasn't trying to deal with angry tenants, rabid dogs, whatever the case may be. The evictions to me are the worst part of being an investor, a property owner. Luckily I've never had to do that, but just the stories that I've heard from other investors, it seems like, not only the time commitment that it takes, but just the process of kicking somebody out of their house, which, the human in me, you're like, I don't want to kick people out of their house, but also as a business owner, you're like, I need my money. Where's my money? Like, you got to pay up. And I understand rents certain circumstances and stuff, and rents do, and that's a kind of a model that I've tried to have in my life, is like, I need to put in that work. I need to pay up, and I need to have the discipline to get to where I want to go. And I know that everyone's life story is a little different, but that's kind of how I've managed my life, not only in sports, but with a wife and two little girls now. I need to set a good example.
Yeah, first of all, I feel you on the business school thing. I couldn't get into the business school at Santa Clara, so we have that in common. Or maybe you didn't try, but I tried and I couldn't get in. Second of all, Zillow is a great I love just browsing on Zillow. It's great.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just a great place to learn about real estate.
Yeah, like when I was in Charlotte this past year, Lake Norman, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Lake Norman, but it's this really nice lake just north of Charlotte. And there's this house it's on an island on Lake Norman, and it's like $22 million. And it's beautiful, but I still get these emails like, hey, price cut on whatever the property address was. And I'll click on it, I'm like, oh, it's this $20 million lake house that I was just looking on for fun. But Zillow's been a great, I bought my last four unit townhome back in February on Zillow. I bought my first rental property in the Toledo area on Zillow. So Zillow's been a great tool for me to use. But however you can find deals is how you find deals. Yeah.
The first property in Toledo, Ohio. Walk me through that. Your first time cutting your teeth in this game, man. What was like the decision process? What made you pull the trigger?
Well, actually, my first deal that I ever did was on University of Michigan's campus in Ann Arbor, Michigan. The same property manager that I had interned for, we had kept in touch over the last couple of years, my first few years in the league. And he reached out to me. He was like, hey, and this was actually right when COVID happened back in March of 2020. He's like, hey, it was an off-market deal, which was, for me as a first-time investor, it was great. I didn't have to deal with competing offers or anything like that. And
Yeah.
he came to me and said, "Hey, one of our investors is looking to sell this duplex. I think it's a great opportunity." And I had been looking to get into the game for a couple of years now, but really, that first step is always the hardest step to take, to pull the trigger on an investment property for me. So, I trusted those guys that I had worked with that, a few summers ago, and it's been the best property that I've had so far, and I've had it for 4 years now. When it comes to the cash flow, when it comes to the equity, it's a block from the big house where the Michigan football team plays. So during the fall, we get some extra revenue from people parking there. They get to tailgate. So we make some extra bucks there, which is great. But that was really my first experience, was a connection that I had. And, growing up, everyone talked about having connections and networking. And I didn't really understand it because I was trying to play football. I was focused on making it to the NFL or starting at Michigan, getting drafted. And that was probably the first time where I really realized, like, okay, having these connections and having these people in my life, and not just like wanting them for something or having them do things for me, but keeping like those genuine connections helped me really get started in real estate investing, and ultimately led to me getting my first deal.
Now you got 13 of them things, man. How do you manage all these? How do you manage 13 rental property units?
Well, I'll say right out, J. Keller Properties in Ann Arbor are the ones that manage the one that's in Ann Arbor on Michigan's campus. They've been phenomenal. And then I've just switched recently to a new property management company in Toledo. But having those people in your life, especially when you're an NFL player or an athlete in general, where your main job is training, eating right, working out, and then when the season comes, you're really it's the hardest when it's in season. So you want to be able to trust somebody to manage your property, make sure rents are getting paid, make sure the money's actually coming into your account, make sure things, when the tenants call, for a leaky faucet or a backed up toilet, or like in my case a couple of weeks ago with a total regut of a property, you have people in place to really handle that. And so far they've been great. And that's kind of how I've handled it so far.
Have you ever been caught slipping, like on your laptop? You're supposed to be looking at the playbook, but someone caught you looking at like the account, making sure you're like checking to see if someone paid the rent, but like, hey, Wormley, get back to the playbook.
No, nothing crazy like that. Like, I like to keep it pretty focused on football when it's definitely in season. But things still come up during the season. You have to make those decisions as the property owner. The property managers can only do so much without your authorization. So, I'll get a call in meetings and I feel it and I look at it and it's Drew, my property manager, saying that X, Y, and Z needs to happen and we need you to sign off on this really today, but I have 6 hours of meetings and a 2-hour practice and recovery and meals. And by the time I get done with the day, it's, business hours are over. So you have to find like those 5 to 10 minutes in between meetings, maybe at lunch or while you're getting ready for practice, to really dive in and say like, okay, like, is this worth replacing, or is this just a quick fix? How's this going to play out in the long term?
Quick decisions that, could have some impact, but I think you probably get better the more decisions you come across to, like, know how to vet different things. Speaking of vetting, what are you looking for nowadays in a rental property unit? Like, clearly we see some patterns here. You got 11 in Ohio, so clearly you like the state, that you grew up in.
Yep.
Aside from it being, geographically near you and where you live, what are you looking for in a property to invest in? Like, what's the criteria for the Wormley family or in yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing I do when I'm on Zillow or whatever, I look up and see where the location's at. I think location is everything. And the places that I have, especially in Michigan, that duplex that's right down the street from the biggest stadium in America with the team who just won the national championship, which doesn't
talk.
Exactly. Yeah. Doesn't hurt when it comes to, especially with that parking during the season. But I'm looking at location, and when I actually get my feet into the building, I'm looking at the bones of it. Looking at, just cosmetic things. How old is the carpet? How new is the kitchen? And then obviously if you get the offer, or you put an offer and you want to even just get an inspection, you want to see how those bones are. What's the foundation look like? How old is the roof? How old is, the siding? What's going to need to be replaced in the next 5 to 10 years? What's immediately needs to be done right now? Those are probably the first things I look at. And then cash flow. I think cash flow is another big thing.
Okay.
You don't want to get a mortgage and then have to be in the negative while you try to increase rents as much as possible. You want to have cash flow from day one, and that's been my thing. And luckily, these first 13 units that I have, they've all been cash flow since day one. And then you try to make improvements. You try to increase the rents at a market rate and go from there.
Do you ever go in and renovate if the carpet's bad? Do you do renovation once you?
Yeah, I mean, if they're already in the unit, I try and keep it as it's been since they've moved in. But if they complain about something,
so you're not a repo guy. You're not redoing everything.
Not yet. I mean, we want to be able to cash flow, and we want to be able to get some money out of that unit, and then go in if they move out, or if something is really, really bad and the carpets, we've had people before where they just let their dogs and cats urinate all over the floor, and it's like, okay, we're going to take your security deposit because you can't just let your dogs urinate and defecate on the floor, but also we're not going to change that until you move out, or God forbid you got to evict them. But there's been cases like that where people really left the unit in a really shitty spot, and then you go in and before you want somebody else to move in, you want to get the floors done, put maybe some LVP flooring in instead of carpet, replace cosmetic things as far as this faucets, leaky faucets. Paint really brightens up a place. But I'm not trying to do something until somebody moves out to kind of put those renovations in.
Feels like a slept on criteria there, Chris, making sure that, that pets aren't defecating all over the carpets before deciding to, work with or purchase that property and work with the tenant.
Yeah. I mean, in my head, you want to rent out a place that you would feel comfortable living in. And when I see that, when someone leaves and I'm like, okay, this is unacceptable. I have to go in and make, put some money into the building to, eventually recoup that money.
Yeah. I mean, that's one tactic. Another tactic could be to just, once again, I keep talking about this intimidation factor. You show up and tell them, hey, keep it clean. I'm sure they would listen, but I know you don't want to be the guy. I know that's not you. You're not the bad guy here. I know you don't want to be the bad guy.
Well, that's kind of the buffer too with having a third-party management company. They can handle all that day-to-day things that if I'm the one that has to do all of it, I have to be the bad guy. And then
but is the third-party management company 6'6", 290? I mean, come on now, No,
but they have good lawyers, and they know all the rules when it comes to being able to kick somebody out or take their security deposit. Like that's what they're good for. And especially during the season, I don't want to have to deal with cat piss and dog poop on someone's carpet. And if that's how they want to live, that's fine. But it's not fine in my units where eventually I'm going to have to flip that unit and put, $5 to $10,000 into it just because you decided to not take your dog and cat out to urinate.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt. No doubt. I wanted to cover something, Chris, that you're working on. Now we have not covered yet on Athletes and Assets, which is something called in real estate, the 1031 exchange. I think this is really fascinating. In my understanding, would you like to explain what that is in layman terms for people who don't know what that is?
Yeah, and this will be my first time doing it as well. But we have a house in Pittsburgh, and we're in. I no longer play for the Steelers. We've had it longer than we should have. We should have sold it last year, but I thought there was a chance that I was going to go back there after I had recovered from my ACL surgery. But anyways, we're in the process of listing it to sell it. And instead of having to take capital gains taxes or pay capital gains taxes from that house, we're going to try and just put that in an escrow account, usually with a title company. This is what I've been told and the research that I've done. And then you have up to 6 months to find a new property to put that, the gains that you've made from that from that investment or house or however you want to say it. It's just a way to not have to pay capital gains taxes and roll it into something else that will continue to make you money.
Yeah, and then you have to purchase sort of a similar home, of similar criteria, right?
Yeah, it has. I think the way that it's typically done is you have to buy a house that is more expensive than what you had sold it with the previous house for. So you can't have a house that's $500,000 and then go buy a rental property for $250,000 and be like, oh, I don't have to pay taxes.
And then like keep the difference. I got you.
Yeah, you can't do that. So it's still all very new to me. I know there's more people probably listening or that are going to listen to this that are going to be like, he said something wrong, or it's not exactly like that. And I'd love for them to reach out. But I'm excited to do this first deal. It's just another step, another check mark in this real estate investing life that I still feel pretty new at. It's been 4 years. But I know that hopefully I have some good wisdom to pass on to some other people as well.
So I feel like the 1031 exchange is not for someone looking to make like quick money. This is not sort of a profitable thing. This is sort of just a thing that allows you to sort of not have to pay extra money versus like a way to make profit, because you're just going to buy another house anyways.
Correct. And that's the whole thing is just adding, instead of this townhome that we have in Pittsburgh, let's put it into, either a duplex in Ann Arbor or, 4 to 8plex in Toledo, and continue to have that cash flow that we're looking for.
That sounds like so as I'm breaking this down, the 1031 exchange is for a vet. I mean, I know I know you say you're early in the game, but a 13 properties in, you're like, you know what? Like, I'm going to keep doing this. Sounds like a vet move right there, man. You may be selling yourself short here.
Well, that's the thing too, is like, I could take all 13 of the units that I have now, sell all of those on top of the house that we have in Pittsburgh, and buy a massive, 20 to 30 unit apartment complex, or 15 duplexes. And I think for me, like, that's just not what I want to do right now, when I still have half of my year is dedicated to running into people and tackling people. But eventually, once football's over, like, this is going to be my main job. I want to take over the management side. I want to deal with the day-to-day grind of dealing with things like that, operationally as well. And that's the thing about real estate too. People think, oh, it's passive income. It's passive. And initially that's what I thought too. I was like, man, like, this is passive income. I can just put my money into it and just watch it grow. And it's not like that at all. It's not sexy like venture capitalism. It's not sexy like fintech is. It's for the most part, it's roll your sleeves up, make hard decisions, and you make hard decisions in any entrepreneurial industry you're in. But I think real estate, people think is a sexy thing. And at least in my experience, it's more of a grind and, wearing rain boots into someone's flooded apartment.
Well, particularly when the real estate is in the Midwest. I mean, like, no disrespect to the Midwest. It's an awesome place, but I'm a warm weather guy, man. Can we talk about are you looking at anywhere that's somewhere near the equator? I mean, like Florida, California.
If I lived there, 100%. Yeah. Like Florida, California with crazy prices. Texas, I know, has been absolutely crazy these last, 5 to 10 years. But I really like to know the market, know the location, know that I can drive an hour and see a property. That's kind of how I've done it over these last 4 years. And maybe once I'm a more seasoned vet, I'll be able to venture out a little bit. But for now, my markets right now have just been Toledo, Ohio, and Ann Arbor, Michigan. Although it's cold and rainy half the year. Yeah.
What's the prime year Midwest weather? What's the best year to be the best time of year to be in the Midwest?
Oh man, I mean, nothing beats springtime in Ann Arbor, Michigan. It's you get the smell of the fresh grass, you get the flowers blooming, and I think when it comes to 4-seasoned areas like the Midwest is, you really get to appreciate the spring and summer, because you have these horrendous winters. You have these sometimes really bad falls where it snows in October. And for someone like you, I think you said you're from Houston, right?
Yep.
Yeah, from Houston. And you guys, you don't get that. You have the luxury of it being, I guess, 120 and muggy, but you don't ever get the snow like we do up north.
No, not at all. But where's that place in Michigan with the big sand dunes? It's like on the lake in the summer. It looks incredible. It's just like this giant dune.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think there's a couple of them, but it's Silver Lake sand dunes, and they have sand dunes that go right into Lake Michigan. Beautiful. If you're ever in
Michigan. What's the rent look like over there?
It's a good question. I haven't ventured too far. Like I said, I keep it simple with Ann Arbor and Toledo, but I know some of those houses, especially on the lake, are beautiful and cost a pretty penny as well.
Is Ann Arbor near that place or no?
It's probably a good 2.5 hours, so it's not too far. And maybe if I'm in the market,
a little gas tank. Okay,
yeah,
depending on what you got.
just not too bad. But if it's they have, like I said, they have beautiful lake homes over there. They have beautiful rental properties when it comes to like short-term Airbnbs, which I haven't ventured into yet. It's a little bit of a daunting task, at least for me, when you have to keep replacing people, week in and week out. I know you had Trey Harris on as well, and he kind of does the luxury.
Terry, yes.
Terry, I'm sorry. Terry Harris out in like Joshua Tree and Palm Springs. That's awesome out there. But like I said, I've never been known as like a sexy guy or like a super flashy guy. I like to just grind and be in the thick of things and do these rental properties.
Once a year I see a tweet every year. It's like clockwork around the wintertime. Like hard eyes, the dunes in Michigan, like in the summertime is a vibe. I'm like, okay,
man, you got to come
all
out.
Right, I'm gonna go there right now and see if I see the same thing.
Not right now. Come in like July, August. I'm telling you, it's beautiful up there.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing with Lake Tahoe here in California. I mean, it's great skiing in the winter, but I wouldn't even dare get in the lake before July.
No,
and I don't care what Twitter shows me. It's gonna be frigid, absolutely frigid.
Come to Michigan late May through mid August, and you'll have the best time ever.
Okay, all right. Yeah, that's awesome. Are there guys on the Panthers this past year that you were around? You're like, that guy's figured it out off the field. He's doing some cool stuff.
Yeah, there were a lot of guys. I know Derek Brown, who just signed a massive deal last week or maybe even earlier this week, D-tackle. He has a lot of land in South Carolina. So the first thing I texted him was, hey, you going to go buy a couple thousand more acres of land? And he was like, absolutely, after he just got his big deal. So he's doing some stuff with land. I know he's flipped a couple houses as well. Von Bell, who's now back on the Cincinnati Bengals. I know he has a bunch of properties in the Miami area. Adam Thielen, I know he's doing some stuff in the real estate space. I think he's definitely a little bit more low key with it. But then there are a lot of guys who were into watches. They use that as an investment tool, which is a little scary to me. That's not really my space. But
you guys are selling watches?
It's not selling watches, holding on to them as investments. I think of it kind of as like real estate, maybe like a 1031 exchange where they buy a watch and then they sell it for more, but instead of, having just the cash, they buy a bigger watch or a more expensive watch or whatever it is. It's a thing. I think that's also a hobby, but also something that you can make money on. But yeah, a couple guys in the real estate land owning space in Carolina, which was cool to kind of bounce ideas off of them and see what they're really doing.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. Where do you see yourself? Where do you see your portfolio in 5 years? Give me a glimpse to the future of the Wormley real estate portfolio.
Yeah, 5 years. I'd love to have 100 units. I think that's the way I've been.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I think 100 units in 5 years. I mean, hopefully play another 2, 3, 4 years. My wife a couple of days ago was like, I think you can play at least 12 years. And I'm thinking like, that's 5 more. That's 5 more seasons. Like,
honey, I think you can bring in that income 12 more years. You got this.
Yeah. So I mean, the way the body's going, I think I can squeeze out another 3 or 4 years, which would be amazing.
Okay.
But then after ball's done, I'm really looking to increase the number of units. I'm looking at a couple thousand would really be the goal. 1,000 and 2,000. I know that's going to take maybe starting a fund, doing a syndication. And those things will all come, I think, as time goes on and I continue to learn. But that's really, 5 years is a very, obtainable goal of 100, I think. And then once that happens, I think I can really start kind of that snowball effect and continuing just to build and grow this portfolio that I've started.
No doubt, man. Please give me some allocation, that Wormley syndication, man. We're that'll, I need to tap in. I'm tapping in early. But man, appreciate you coming on the podcast and and chatting, Chris. Really appreciate that, and excited to see where you go, man. So this has been another great episode of the Athletes and Assets podcast, where we bring on your favorite athletes to chat about a business topic. I've been your host, Noah Lack. Chris, thanks so much for joining us, brother. Really appreciate it.
My man, Noah, thank you, man. I appreciate you a lot.